The rejection. It was a cold day when Earth's final hope was crushed. The Galactic Council, a group of the most powerful and ancient alien species in the galaxy, had made their decision. Earth, a planet once full of dreams and ambition, had been rejected. The Council, who controlled the fate of the galaxy, had chosen to turn their backs on humanity. They said Earth was not ready. They said humanity was too young, too chaotic, and too dangerous to be part of the greater galactic community. For years, humanity had tried to join the Council. For years, they had worked tirelessly to prove themselves worthy. They had built impressive technologies, sent ships into deep space, and made strides in exploring the unknown. They had fought in wars, faced hardships, and survived against all odds. But despite their efforts, they were always dismissed. The rejection came in the form of a cold, distant message transmitted to Earth's leaders. The message was simple but crushing. Humanity is not invited to join the Galactic Council. You will remain isolated from the affairs of the galaxy. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People were stunned. They couldn't believe it. The great galaxy, the place where all their hopes and dreams had been directed, had closed its doors to them. There was no explanation, no reasoning, just rejection. The leaders of Earth gathered, their faces filled with frustration and disbelief. The representatives who had pleaded their case to the Council were now silent, defeated by the weight of their failure. For many on Earth, this rejection felt like a slap in the face. The Earth's governments had invested so much in trying to join the galactic community. The ambassadors, diplomats, and scientists who had given their lives to this cause were left with nothing. Humanity had been turned away without a second thought. Among those who were deeply affected was General Marcus Hale, a seasoned military leader who had seen the darkest days of human history. Hale had fought in wars, led troops through countless battles, and stood firm in the face of overwhelming odds. But the rejection from the Galactic Council hurt him in a way no battle ever had. It wasn't just about the pride of humanity. It was about survival. The Council's decision meant that Earth would remain alone, without allies, without protection, and without a voice in the future of the galaxy. Hale gathered his officers and staff in a secure room. The room was quiet. Only the hum of the cooling systems could be heard. He stood in front of a large digital map of the galaxy, which displayed Earth at the edge of known space. "We've been rejected," Hale said, his voice calm but filled with a sharp edge. "But that's their mistake, not ours." He paused, letting the words sink in. His officers, who had known him for years, exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen him in combat, but this was different. This was a new kind of fight, a fight for survival, a fight for Earth's place in the stars. "We cannot wait for the Council to change their minds. We will not beg for their approval. We will not be their slaves," Hale continued, his eyes burning with a fire that had been lit in him long ago. "Humanity will rise. We will make them see our power. We will build our own future. We will not be confined to the edges of space, waiting for permission to join the galaxy. We will take our place, and no one will stop us." The officers stood still, listening to Hale. They could feel the power of his words, the determination in his voice. This was not just about politics or military strategy. This was about something bigger, the survival of humanity. Hale turned to the map, pointing to the stars beyond Earth's orbit. "We will build a fleet that will rival anything the Council has ever seen. And when we strike, they will understand that rejecting us was the biggest mistake of their lives." There was a long silence in the room as his words hung in the air. The officers nodded, their faces set in determination. They knew what they had to do. They would not bow down to the Council. They would build their own destiny, and nothing would stand in their way. The decision was made. The first steps toward building a fleet were taken. Earth's best scientists, engineers, and military leaders were brought together to create the most advanced warships ever designed. They worked day and night, combining Earth's most powerful technologies and creating new innovations that had never been seen before. But building a fleet was not enough. Earth would need resources, allies, and a strategy to take down the Council. General Hale knew that this would not be a quick or easy fight, but he also knew that humanity was strong. Earth had always been a planet that had survived against all odds, and now they would fight for their place in the stars. Back on Earth, the people rallied around their leaders. They were no longer content with being ignored. They wanted to prove themselves, not just to the Council, but to the entire galaxy. The rejection had sparked a fire inside them, a fire that would burn until they had their chance to show the galaxy that they were more than just an afterthought. They were a force to be reckoned with. The time for begging and waiting was over. Humanity was going to take the galaxy by storm. They would build their empire, and the Galactic Council would soon regret the day they shunned Earth. In the months that followed, Earth's fleet took shape. Their ships grew stronger, faster, and more deadly. The galaxy would soon hear the roar of humanity's engines as they moved out of the shadows and into the light. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake, and soon they would pay the price. The days after Earth's rejection were filled with anger, confusion, and determination. People on Earth felt betrayed. Their hearts were heavy, their dreams shattered, but something more powerful began to stir deep within them. The rejection had not crushed their spirit, it had ignited it. They had been told they were not worthy of the stars, but now, humanity would show the galaxy just what they were made of. General Marcus Hale, the man who had always stood firm in battle, now faced a new kind of war. It wasn't just about military strategy or tactics. It was about survival and proving humanity's place in the universe. For Hale, it wasn't just the future of Earth that was at stake. It was humanity's very identity. The question on his mind was no longer about why they had been rejected, but how they could make the Council regret that decision. The first step was to unite Earth's vast resources. Governments across the planet rallied behind Hale's vision. No longer were there divisions based on borders or old conflicts. Humanity was a single force now, working together to overcome their past struggles and build a future far beyond the stars. The scientific community, once divided, now worked in unison, pooling their knowledge to create new technologies that would give Earth an edge in the coming conflict. But it wasn't just about technology. Hale knew that Earth would need more than just firepower to challenge the Galactic Council. They needed unity, resilience, and a deep understanding of what it meant to be human. And this was something Earth's enemies, the Council included, had underestimated. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to adapt, to survive, and to fight against overwhelming odds. As the work on the new fleet began, Hale turned his attention to the first test, gathering the resources necessary to power their ships. Earth had long since mastered space travel, but the ships they were now building required far more energy and precision than anything they had ever attempted. And they needed it quickly. The Council's forces, though distracted by their politics, were still a formidable threat. Hale couldn't afford to waste time. His solution was to look beyond the traditional methods of space exploration. Earth's top scientists developed a new form of energy, an advanced fusion reactor that could provide the ships with the immense power they needed. It was revolutionary, capable of propelling ships at speeds faster than anything the galaxy had seen. But the true beauty of this new technology lay in its ability to sustain a fleet in deep space for extended periods of time, without needing to rely on distant resupply stations. It was the key to Earth's self-sufficiency, something that would allow them to operate outside the reach of the Council's influence. Meanwhile, Earth's military leaders began training their forces for a war unlike any they had ever faced. They had spent decades fighting smaller wars on their home planet, but this was different. This was an interstellar battle. The soldiers, pilots, and commanders underwent grueling training, pushing their bodies and minds to their limits. They knew that the battle ahead would not just be fought with ships and weapons, but with ingenuity, strategy, and the will to never back down. The people of Earth, too, had their part to play. While many volunteered for military service, others worked behind the scenes, Farmers grew food to sustain the growing fleet. Engineers built the factories that would manufacture the ships. Teachers educated the new generations of soldiers and civilians, instilling in them a sense of purpose and unity. Even the youngest of Earth's citizens felt the weight of the rejection and the responsibility to rise above it. Earth was no longer a planet of divided nations. They were a united species, determined to prove their worth to the galaxy. And as Earth's fleet began to take shape, so did their resolve. The first warships rolled out of the shipyards, sleek and powerful, ready to face the unknown. Each ship was equipped with cutting-edge weaponry, laser cannons capable of cutting through the toughest armor, shield generators that could withstand the fiercest attacks, and advanced AI systems that made each ship more than just a machine, but an extension of its crew. The ships were not just tools of war. They were symbols of humanity's willpower and determination. General Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship, gazing out at the growing fleet. The sight filled him with both pride and anxiety. The fleet was almost ready, but their greatest challenge still lay ahead: how to strike at the heart of the Galactic Council without triggering an all-out war that could wipe out everything they had worked for. The Council, still unaware of the full extent of humanity's preparations, continued to operate under the assumption that Earth would remain in the shadows, a forgotten planet far from the galactic stage. But that assumption would soon be shattered. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. They were not just surviving. They were rising, ready to take their place in the stars, whether the Council accepted them or not. With the fleet nearly ready, General Hale knew that the time for waiting was over. The first step had been taken. Earth had unified. The second step was close to completion. The fleet was strong. Now it was time for the final step. The hardest step. Humanity would make its move. The Galactic Council had shunned humanity, but in doing so, they had awakened something powerful, something dangerous. The galaxy would soon learn that rejecting Earth had been the greatest mistake the Council had ever made, and humanity's rise would be unstoppable. The stars would no longer belong to the Council. They would belong to humanity. The time had come. After months of careful preparation, Earth's fleet was ready for action. General Marcus Hale stood before a vast map of the galaxy, a hologram displaying star systems and the routes leading to the Galactic Council's strongholds. His heart pounded with anticipation as he traced the lines with his finger, knowing that the first strike would be the key to their success or their failure. They could not afford to make a mistake. For years, the Galactic Council had controlled the galaxy with an iron fist. Their powerful fleets and advanced technology had ensured that no one dared challenge them. Earth, dismissed and rejected, was a small planet in a distant corner of the galaxy, nothing more than a forgotten relic of an age gone by. But now, humanity was no longer the weak and vulnerable species they once were. They were determined to prove their strength, and this first strike would make it clear to the Council that they had made a grave mistake in shunning Earth. The target was a Council research station located in the Outer Rim, a facility that housed advanced weaponry and research. If Earth could destroy it, it would send a message to the Council that humanity was capable of striking deep into their territory. The station was heavily guarded, surrounded by warships and drones, but Hale knew that this would be their test. If they could succeed here, they would prove that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The flagship, Vanguard, was at the center of the fleet. It was a symbol of humanity's might, a ship unlike any other. With its advanced fusion reactor powering its engines, it could travel across vast stretches of space in a fraction of the time it would take other ships. The weapons aboard the Vanguard were designed to shatter even the toughest armor, capable of dealing with the best the Council had to offer. But the true strength of the Vanguard wasn't just in its weaponry, it was in its crew. Every person aboard the ship had trained for this moment, from the captain to the lowest-ranking soldier. Captain Anna Alvarez stood at the helm of the Vanguard, her fingers hovering over the controls. She was calm, focused, but underneath, her nerves were firing with adrenaline. She knew what was at stake. This mission would define Earth's future in the galaxy. If they failed, Earth's chance at power would vanish. If they succeeded, they would have the upper hand in their fight against the Council. "All systems are green, Captain," reported Lieutenant Darnell, the communications officer, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The fleet is ready." "Good," Captain Alvarez replied, her voice firm. "We launch in 10 minutes. No mistakes, everyone." As the countdown began, the fleet's warships gathered together in formation, their engines humming with power. Each ship was designed for precision and strength, with sleek, deadly silhouettes that could strike fast and hard. The ships carried the latest human technology, from laser cannons that could cut through shields to missile systems that could decimate entire fleets. It was a far cry from the outdated ships Earth had once used in its early days of space exploration. Humanity was now armed with the most advanced weapons the galaxy had ever seen. General Hale watched from a command station on Earth's moon, tracking the fleet's progress through his communications system. He could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. It wasn't just about military might. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity was capable of leading, of creating an empire of their own. This mission was the spark that would set everything in motion. "Report from the Vanguard, sir," came the voice of one of his aides. "They've entered the target system. They're approaching the research station." "Good. Keep me updated," Hale said, his voice calm but firm. Inside, his thoughts raced. The first strike was everything. The Council would not expect it, and that was their advantage. If they could take down this station, it would show the Council that they were vulnerable, that they could no longer operate with impunity. As the Vanguard approached the research station, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, emerging just outside the station's defenses. The stars in the background twinkled coldly, but the focus of the fleet was on the station before them. It loomed large on the screen, its shields glowing faintly, protecting it from outside threats. "Captain, we're in position," Lieutenant Darnell reported, his voice sharp. "Target locked." "Fire," Captain Alvarez commanded, her voice steady and resolute. The Vanguard's guns roared to life, and a barrage of laser fire shot out toward the station. The lasers struck the station's shields with violent force, causing the shield to flicker and tremble. The station's defenses were strong, but they were not invincible. The human ships, working in perfect coordination, began their assault in full force, pounding the station's shields with relentless fire. In the chaos of battle, the fleet's smaller ships darted in and out, launching missiles at key targets, while the larger warships kept the station's defenses busy. It was a well-coordinated attack, and the station's defenses were quickly overwhelmed. The first of the station's outer turrets was destroyed in a fiery explosion, and then another. The humans were proving they could fight on equal terms with the galaxy's greatest power. On Earth's moon, General Hale watched the live feed, his heart racing. The first stage of the attack was going according to plan. The Council would never have expected humanity to strike so boldly. The research station was a key target, but it wasn't just about destroying it. It was about sending a message that humanity would no longer be weak and forgotten. They were here to stay. The research station's shields flickered and finally collapsed under the weight of the human assault. The station was vulnerable now, and the fleet moved in for the final strike. "Target the core," Captain Alvarez shouted. With precision, the fleet launched a final barrage of missiles, striking the heart of the station. The explosion was massive, sending debris and flames across the void. The research station was no more, and the galaxy had just witnessed the power of humanity. As the smoke of battle cleared, the fleet stood victorious. The Council had received their message, loud and clear. Humanity was no longer weak. They were a force to be reckoned with, and this was just the beginning. The explosion of the research station sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News spread like wildfire, and within hours, the entire galaxy knew what had happened. The Galactic Council, a powerful collective of the most advanced and influential species in the galaxy, had been struck a blow unlike anything they had ever expected. Earth had defied them, and now the Council was furious. The Council's War Council convened in a secret chamber deep within their massive citadel. Representatives from every major species, ranging from towering insectoid creatures to elegant energy-based beings, gathered in tense silence. The holographic projection in the center of the room flickered to life, displaying the remains of the shattered research station and the human fleet that had destroyed it. The council members exchanged looks of disbelief, their arrogance shattered by humanity's audacious act. A tall figure, his body a mass of shifting shadows and glowing symbols, stood at the center. This was High Arbiter Tannic, the leader of the Galactic Council. His voice echoed through the chamber, cold and authoritative. How could this happen? How could a planet, so insignificant in comparison to our might, carry out such an attack? Tannic's voice trembled with anger, his eyes burning with contempt. We warned them. We rejected them. And now, they have the audacity to strike at us. A representative from the Zarkan species, a race known for their speed and cunning, spoke next. His sharp, angular face was twisted in a sneer. The humans are nothing more than a primitive species. How did they manage to breach our defenses? It's impossible. Another member, a hulking, armored warrior from the Korath Empire, growled low in his throat. This will not go unpunished. We will launch a counteroffensive. A show of force will remind them of their place. Not yet, High Arbiter Tannic interjected, raising a hand. We must understand the threat before we respond. If Earth truly has the power to challenge us, we must know how they achieved this. Our response must be calculated, not impulsive. The room fell silent as the leaders of the council deliberated. They were not accustomed to being questioned, let alone attacked. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and now one small, previously insignificant planet had shaken their authority. The gravity of the situation was clear. Humanity was not just a thorn in their side. It was a growing, unpredictable threat. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Marcus Hale and Captain Anna Alvarez stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring out at the galaxy beyond. They knew that the Council would not take this attack lightly. They had stirred a hornet's nest, and now the galaxy would respond. The Vanguard was still recovering from the attack, but it was a symbol of humanity's power. They had struck first, but now they had to prepare for the inevitable retaliation. They couldn't afford to be complacent. General, we've received intelligence from our scouts, Captain Alvarez reported. The Council is assembling a massive fleet. They're preparing for a retaliatory strike. We're their primary target. Of course they are, Hale muttered, his jaw clenched. They're not going to let this go. We need to be ready. The galaxy was on edge. The Council had mobilized its fleets, and every major species in the galaxy was either preparing to defend against or align with the Council's wrath. Earth had become the center of a growing conflict, one that no one could have predicted. On the edge of Council space, far from the chaos of the capital, a fleet of human warships stood ready. These ships were the backbone of Earth's military, and they were a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination. They weren't the biggest or the most advanced ships in the galaxy, but they were tough, resourceful, and led by a people who had no intention of being pushed around. General Hale paced back and forth in the command center, his mind racing with plans and strategies. He knew that the Council's retaliation would come swiftly. He had to be prepared to counter it. We can't just sit back and wait, Hale said, his voice firm. We need to strike before they do. We'll hit their supply lines, disrupt their communication networks, and make sure they know they can't just steamroll us. Captain Alvarez nodded, her face set with determination. We've trained for this moment. The Vanguard and the fleet will take the fight to them. But we need to be smart about this. We can't afford to take unnecessary risks. The stage was set. The Council was coming. The fleets were preparing for battle, and humanity had no choice but to meet them head-on. General Hale and Captain Alvarez knew that this was just the beginning. The first strike had been a message, but now the true war was about to begin. As the human fleet prepared for its next move, the Council's retaliation would be swift, and the galaxy would soon find out just how far humanity was willing to go to defend its right to exist. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The fate of Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. Would humanity survive the wrath of the Galactic Council, or would this bold move become their downfall? Only time would tell. The first strike from the Galactic Council hit Earth with overwhelming force. Within days of the Council's decision, fleets of ships, each more powerful than any human had ever seen, were descending towards Earth's atmosphere. The space around Earth became a battlefield as massive warships moved into position, their weapons primed and ready. Humanity had become a target, and the Council was determined to make an example of them. But humanity had never been one to back down. The Vanguard, the human fleet's flagship, stood firm in the vast expanse of space, awaiting orders. General Marcus Hale stood at the command console, his mind racing as he watched the incoming threat approach. He had seen the Council's fleets in the distance. They were formidable, but they were not invincible. "General," Captain Ana Alvarez said, breaking his concentration, "we've confirmed the Council's flagship is leading the charge. Their firepower is massive. If we engage them head-on, we'll lose." Hale's eyes narrowed. He knew the odds were against them. They were facing a fleet of technologically superior ships, ships that had been used to ruling the galaxy without challenge for millennia. But humanity had something the Council didn't: creativity and sheer determination. The human fleet may have been smaller, but they had never backed down from a fight. "We won't engage them head-on," Hale said, his voice steady. "We'll fight smart. We're going to hit them where it hurts. Focus on their smaller ships first, disrupt their lines. Once we've cut off their support, we'll focus on the big guys." It was a risky move, but it was the only one that made sense. The Council's flagship might be a massive force, but if the smaller ships were neutralized, the Council would be left vulnerable. As the human fleet moved into position, the battle began. The first wave of Council ships opened fire, their energy beams streaking across the vastness of space. The human ships dodged and weaved, relying on their agility and speed. The Vanguard shot through the darkness, its weapons lighting up the void with powerful pulses. The fleet's smaller vessels darted in and out of the enemy lines, picking off the less defended ships in the rear. The battle was chaotic, a storm of flashing lights and crackling energy beams. Human ships danced through the fire, moving in ways the Council hadn't anticipated. The Council's ships were powerful, yes, but they lacked the speed and flexibility of the humans. It was the humans' greatest advantage. General Hale watched as the first of the smaller Council ships began to explode in bright bursts of energy. The humans were making progress, but there was still a long way to go. The larger ships were still a significant threat, and their firepower was nothing short of terrifying. One shot from their main guns could obliterate a human ship in seconds. "They're beginning to break formation," Captain Alvarez reported. "We're forcing them into disarray. If we keep up the pressure, we can turn this around." Hale nodded grimly. The tide was turning, but the battle was far from over. The Council's ships were large and heavily armored, but humanity had something they couldn't account for: a relentless drive to survive. They would keep fighting, no matter what. Then, as the battle raged on, the unexpected happened. A ripple of energy surged through the human fleet's communication systems. It was a signal from Earth. A single message came through, transmitted across all frequencies, and it sent shockwaves through the human fleet. "Do not stop. Humanity will not fall today. Victory is ours." It was a rallying cry from Earth, an unspoken promise to every human soldier, pilot, and crew member in the fleet. It reminded them that this battle wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming their place in the galaxy. The Council had underestimated them, and now the tables were turning. "We've got this," General Hale said quietly to himself. He turned to Captain Alvarez, a fire in his eyes. We push forward. No retreat. No surrender. Humanity is fighting for its future. With renewed resolve, the human fleet pressed forward, cutting through the Council's lines like a blade through silk. The Council was beginning to realize the gravity of the situation. Their initial confidence had been shattered. Humanity wasn't just a planet they could push aside. It was a force to be reckoned with. But just as it seemed the tide was turning in humanity's favor, the largest ship in the entire fleet, the Council's flagship, fired its main weapon, a massive energy beam that tore through space. It targeted the Vanguard directly. No, Captain Alvarez screamed as she watched the beam approach. But it was too late. The Vanguard shook violently as the energy beam struck its hull, causing the ship to shudder with a deafening impact. Sparks flew across the bridge, and alarms blared in the background. But General Hale didn't flinch. He had faced worse. He grabbed the controls with both hands, his voice steady. "Get us out of here," he ordered. Evasive maneuvers. The ship's engines roared to life as the Vanguard darted to the side, narrowly avoiding another deadly shot. The bridge crew worked quickly, patching up the damage and getting the ship back into the fight. "We're not done yet," Hale said, his voice fierce. Not by a long shot. The battle continued. The humans weren't giving up. The Council's flagship might be a fearsome opponent, but humanity wasn't ready to surrender. It was far from over. The war had just begun, and the Council had made a deadly mistake underestimating humanity. The fight for survival was more than just a battle for Earth. It was a fight for everything humanity had built, everything they stood for. The battle had raged on for hours, and Earth's defenders were beginning to feel the strain. The human fleet, though smaller and less advanced than the Council's forces, had fought with determination and ingenuity. Every ship in the fleet had been pushed to its limits, and despite the constant barrage of enemy fire, they had managed to hold their ground. But the Council's flagship still loomed large, its devastating firepower proving difficult to overcome. General Marcus Hale stood on the command deck of the Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the screens in front of him. The battle was not over. The Council's flagship had taken a few hits, but it was still functional, its weapons ready to destroy anything that dared approach. "We can't keep this up much longer," Captain Ana Alvarez said, her voice tense. "We've taken heavy damage, and we're losing ships. The Council's flagship is almost impenetrable. If we don't do something soon, we won't make it." Hale's jaw tightened as he considered the situation. He knew that they couldn't afford to wait much longer. The Council was relentless, and their tactics had been calculated and brutal. But the humans had one final card to play, a weapon that the Council hadn't seen coming. "Prepare for the final strike," Hale ordered. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. We finish this now, or we risk losing everything." The crew sprang into action. They had no time to waste. The human fleet, though battered and weary, was about to launch its most daring attack yet. It was risky, perhaps the riskiest move they had ever attempted. But it was their best chance at victory. The Vanguard moved into position, joining the remaining human ships. The plan was simple, but deadly. They would launch a direct assault on the Council's flagship. Their goal wasn't to destroy it outright. They didn't have the firepower for that, but to destabilize it long enough for their most dangerous weapon to reach it. "Activate the pulse cannons," Hale commanded. "Focus all firepower on the flagship's weak points." The Vanguard's cannons fired, their pulse beams cutting through the void of space, striking the Council flagship's hull with precision. The enemy ship shook under the assault, but its shields held. However, that wasn't the true purpose of the attack. The pulse cannons were meant to draw attention and distract the enemy. As the Council's flagship concentrated its fire on the Vanguard, the humans moved into position. "Now," Captain Alvarez shouted. A small, sleek ship, specially designed for speed and stealth, shot forward from the human fleet. It was the final weapon. a specially modified missile that contained the heart of humanity's secret weapon. The missile was designed to slip past the Council's defenses and strike directly at the flagship's core, where its power systems were housed. The missile streaked toward the flagship, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire from the enemy ships. It was a race against time. The Council had no idea what was coming. As the missile approached, the Council's flagship fired one last desperate shot. The energy beam cut through space, hitting the missile with brutal force. The impact should have destroyed it, but it didn't. The missile's advanced shielding held, absorbing the blast and continuing its course toward the heart of the flagship. Then, in an instant, the missile collided with its target. An explosion of light and energy erupted from the core of the Council's flagship, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The flagship's shields flickered and failed, its hull buckling under the force of the blast. The shockwave rippled through space, throwing several Council ships off course. The flagship began to drift, its power systems failing. "We did it," Captain Alvarez exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief. General Hale stood silent for a moment, watching the massive enemy ship start to lose control. His heart raced as he realized the significance of what had just happened. The Council's flagship, the symbol of their dominance, was dying. The once mighty fleet was now crippled, its main source of power gone. But even as the flagship began to fall, the battle was far from over. The remaining Council ships still posed a significant threat, and they weren't about to surrender without a fight. Despite the damage they had taken, the human fleet pressed on, knowing that they had just dealt the Council a crushing blow. The remaining Council ships attempted to regroup, trying to form a defensive perimeter around their dying flagship. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The human fleet moved in with renewed purpose, determined to finish what they had started. The last Council ship standing, a formidable battleship that had once been part of the flagship's fleet, tried to make a desperate stand. It fired its weapons, but the human fleet was already on top of it, surrounding it from all sides. There was no escape. The Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. The Vanguard moved in for the final strike, its weapons lighting up the darkness of space. With one final volley, the last Council ship was destroyed, breaking apart in a spectacular burst of light. The battle was over. Humanity had won. General Hale stood at the command console, breathing heavily. His crew was silent, exhausted from the intense battle. But there was no time to celebrate. Not yet. There was still work to be done. The Council had been defeated, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had only just begun. "We've won today," Hale said, his voice steady. "But this is just the beginning. We've proven we can fight. Now we'll show the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." As the human fleet gathered together in the vast expanse of space, the message was clear. The Council had shunned humanity, but in doing so, they had made their greatest mistake. The human empire was just beginning to rise, and nothing could stand in its way. The galaxy had never seen anything like this before. In the wake of the Council's defeat, a new power was beginning to rise. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, now stood at the helm of an empire that stretched beyond what the Council could have imagined. General Marcus Hale stood on the observation deck of the Vanguard, watching as the fleet gathered in formation. His heart swelled with pride, not for the victory, but for what they had built. They had proven the doubters wrong. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not only capable of surviving, but of dominating. "General, the fleet is ready." Captain Alvarez's voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to face her, a determined look in his eyes. "This is it. Time to show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." With a nod, Hale turned and made his way to the command center. The human fleet, once small and scattered, had now become a formidable force. They had taken the fight to the heart of the Council, and now they were taking it to the stars. Earth was no longer just a planet in a far-off corner of the galaxy. It was the heart of an empire. The battle with the Council had been only the beginning. The victory had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, and other species that once thought humanity insignificant were now taking notice. Some were terrified of what they had seen, while others saw an opportunity to form alliances. And then there were those who, like the Council before them, underestimated humanity's power and made the mistake of thinking they could challenge Earth's new empire. As the fleet made its way through the stars, humanity's influence grew. It was no longer a matter of just defending Earth. It was about building a new order. One by one, the surrounding star systems began to fall under the control of the human empire. Some systems joined willingly, seeing the benefits of becoming part of something greater. Others resisted, but the humans were relentless. The days of Earth being ignored were over. The vanguard led the charge as humanity began to carve out its territory, creating alliances with species that recognized their strength. Some alien races, who had once been at odds with humanity, saw the writing on the wall. They quickly realized that opposing humanity was a futile effort, and many chose to work with them, offering their technology, resources, and military support. But not everyone was willing to submit to the new power. The remnants of the Council, though broken and scattered, still had followers, and they refused to accept the rise of humanity. A small but powerful faction of the former Council forces, led by a disgraced admiral named Valus Threx, rallied around the belief that humanity's victory was a fluke, and they were determined to make a stand. They viewed the human empire as an affront to the natural order and vowed to take back what was rightfully theirs. Hale's fleet was ready. The vanguard, now a symbol of humanity's power, had been refitted and upgraded. Every ship in the fleet had been reinforced and armed to the teeth, its weapons now far more advanced than before. The humans had learned much from their enemies during the war, and they were ready to use that knowledge to ensure that no one would ever challenge their rule again. The final battle for control of the galaxy was inevitable. The remnants of the Council, led by Threx, had amassed a fleet of their own, and they were preparing for one last stand. They knew they couldn't win, but they were willing to die to try. They believed that by destroying humanity's fleet, they could spark a rebellion across the galaxy and reclaim their lost power. But they underestimated the resolve of humanity. As the two fleets faced each other in the vastness of space, Hale's voice crackled over the comms, commanding his forces. "This ends today. We will not be cowed. We will not be broken. The galaxy is ours now." The first volley of fire lit up the void. A deafening roar of weapons filled the air as the two fleets clashed. The humans fought with the precision and fearlessness that had earned them their place as the galaxy's new rulers. The battle was fierce, but it was clear from the start that humanity had the upper hand. The remnants of the Council were no match for the human fleet's superior tactics and firepower. Admiral Threx, aboard his flagship, tried desperately to rally his forces. His ships fought valiantly, but they were slowly being overwhelmed. Threx's face twisted in rage as he watched his fleet crumble before him. This was not how it was supposed to be. Humanity had no right to this power. But it was too late. One by one, Threx's ships were destroyed, their pieces floating in the cold expanse of space. The remnants of the Council were no more. The war for control of the galaxy was over. With the final enemy ship destroyed, Hale stood at the command console, watching as the human fleet moved to claim the remains of the battlefield. The galaxy was theirs. Humanity's empire was secure, and the age of Earth's rejection had ended. As the dust settled, Hale knew that this was only the beginning of humanity's rise. They had built an empire, but the true test lay ahead. Would they be able to maintain their dominance? Would they face new threats that could challenge their power? There were still countless questions to answer, but for now, humanity stood at the top. They had been shunned by the Council, rejected, and cast aside. But in the end, that had been their greatest mistake. Humanity had not only survived, they had thrived. And now, the galaxy would never forget the name Earth.